In a hamlet tucked among emerald hills where breezes sang, lived a girl named Saria. Saria was slight, with curls like dandelion fluff and a giggle that tickled the grass. She loved the wind, how it twirled leaves into spirals and carried scents of far-off places. She'd chase gusts, arms wide, imagining their tails. The villagers called her Windcatcher, for she could sense a breeze's mood. One crisp dawn, as Saria danced on a hill, a feather, silver as a sigh, floated down. It shimmered, light as air, and hovered before her. "Oh!" Saria gasped, catching it. The feather quivered, and a voice, airy as a flute, whispered, "I'm a plume from the Weaver of Winds. She needs aid. Will you follow?" Saria's heart leaped. The Weaver of Winds was a myth, a spirit who spun breezes into stories that traveled the world. She slipped the feather into her pocket, grabbed a satchel with bread and a patched cloak, and told her brother she'd be back by dusk, though she wasn't certain. The feather tugged gently, leading her to the whistling crags, rugged peaks where winds howled. The crags were steep, their stones humming with secrets. The feather floated ahead, glowing faintly. Saria hiked, though doubts nipped. Too young, too small. But the feather sparkled, urging her on. At a high ledge, she found a hollow where breezes swirled like a choir. There stood a figure in a cloak of mist, her hands shaping the air as if threading a loom. "Are you the Weaver of Winds?" Saria called, breathless. "I am," the weaver said, her voice a soft gust. "You hold my plume. Few see it, fewer follow. My winds are unraveling, Saria, and their stories fade. Will you help?" Saria nodded, though she felt tiny. The weaver showed her a loom of clouds, its threads spun from breezes. Each thread carried a story, but some were frayed, and the air felt still. "Every breeze tells a tale," the weaver said. "When they weaken, the world forgets them." Saria's task was to mend the threads. The weaver taught her to listen to their songs. Saria touched a thread, which hummed of a playful breeze that danced with kites. She sang to it, her voice shaky but true, and the thread gleamed, the breeze strengthening. Another thread sang of a bold wind that guided ships. Saria's song was brave, and it shone. Some threads were tangled, their stories heavy. One quivered, tied to a breeze that carried a child's lost wish. Saria's heart ached, but she sang of hope, and the thread smoothed. The weaver smiled. "You hear the wind's heart, Saria." She worked on, mending threads for breezes that tickled forests or whispered lullabies. But one thread, stormy and cold, resisted. It wailed of a wind that bore fear, gales that scared travelers. Saria's voice faltered. "It's too wild," she said. The weaver knelt. "Fear is part of every tale. Find its strength." Saria listened. Beneath the wail she heard a spark, a wish to protect. She sang of shelter, of winds that cleared storms for clear skies. The thread softened, glowing warmly. The loom hummed its breezes whole. The weaver touched Saria's hand. "You've rewoven the wind's stories." She gave her the silver feather, now warm as a breath. "Keep this. It'll sing when you doubt." Saria trekked home, the feather in her cloak. The hamlet seemed alive, breezes swirling with purpose. Her brother hugged her, asking where she'd gone. "Chasing winds," she grinned. That night she felt the air, vibrant with stories she'd saved. As Saria grew, she never stopped chasing breezes. When unsure, she held the feather, its song echoing the weaver's words. She shared the wind's tales with the hamlet's children, who laughed at their dances. "Every breeze has a story," she'd say, "and every story needs a voice." One dawn, the weaver, now frail, returned. "My time fades," she said. "Will you tend my loom?" Saria nodded, heart full. The weaver left the loom, small enough to hold. As the new Weaver of Winds, Saria spun breezes, teaching others their songs. The feather, always near, hummed softly, proof that even a small voice can stir the mightiest winds. And so, the air grew rich with tales, carried far for those who felt the breeze. Saria, once a dreamy girl, became a legend, her name whispered by winds and hills.